watching more videos of Storywood. This is not sponsored by them.
There are people in our lives that make us feel safe and loved and respected. And then for some of us out there are people in our lives that are supposed to make us safe and loved and respected, but they don't do their job. My entire life I've had a wonderful father who has made so many sacrifices for me and taken care of me so that I could have a better future. Unfortunately, I can't say the same about my mother. From a young age, I was always ridiculed, teased, and taunted by my mom. And whenever I did something wrong, I wasn't properly sat down and disciplined. I was yelled at and smacked even sometimes. I grew up with a very low self-esteem because my mom would say things like, "You're terrible, I don't like you, I don't love you at all. I think that you're a big burden to this family. What sin could I have possibly committed to have had you as a kid?" And she thought that all of these words would just brush over and that I would realize that she somehow didn't mean them. But she said them so many times that I don't think she doesn't believe them. In fact, I'm quite sure that she means everything that she says, and as a result, it has lowered my self-esteem and my self-worth, and it has made me do things like cutting and inflicting self-harm. As a young adult, even now, I suffer with esteem and my self-worth, and it has made me do things like cutting and inflicting self-harm. As a young adult, even now, I suffer with this. Of course, I've stopped inflicting self-harm, but I have struggled with my self-worth so much. Whenever I look into the mirror, I can't see a girl that I love and appreciate. I can't see somebody that is strong and independent. I see someone who's weak and who's been broken and shattered by a negative influence all her life. To those of you out there who are struggling because of some negative influence on human beings, and you have so much to offer this world,
Amen.
don't let this negative influence take over your life anymore.
Oh my god, and we totally jumped off the cliff and had to zoom all the way ashore because the dog chased us all the way to the end.
When I was younger, I don't know if I want to get one. I might just I'm not adopted. What's that?
For 7 years of my life, I grew up in the foster system. I had to leave my mom's house because of the decisions she made to stop being there for her children. At the time, it was just me, an 8-year-old girl, and my brother, an 11-year-old, severely autistic boy. One day, the police showed up at our house. They asked me a lot of questions and then told us I would be staying at my aunt's house with her 3 kids, and my brother would go to a home to support his needs. I stayed with my aunt and her cousins for a year and a half until one day my aunt told me to pack some clothes. I thought I was going to spend some time with my other aunt and cousins, so happily I went to pack some clothes, but once I was done, I went to the front room and my aunt told me and my cousin I was going away for some time. I didn't know what that meant, but we all cried, and my caseworker showed up. My caseworker didn't tell me too much on our car ride there, but for the most of the ride, I cried. Once we got there, I was greeted by someone I would soon look up to as a sister, and by more people I would soon consider my family. I lived there for 2.5 years. I wanted that to be my forever home, my forever family. But I found out my biological mom had another baby. He was only 5 months old, and the state wanted us to be together forever. I moved in with him and his foster family. I watched him grow up, cry, fuss, change his diapers. I never thought I'd have a little brother, but there he was right before my eyes. I thought that was it for our foster placements, but I was wrong. Something didn't work in that home, and we were moved after a year and a half of staying there. Now, we were with our very first white foster parent, a single mother with 3 cute but crazy kids. To say the least on that home, it didn't work, and we left. On my last day of school, we were taken to our next foster home, and our last one. Thank you, Jesus. Another white family with 4 kids, a boy in the 11th grade, a girl going on 9th grade, another girl in the 7th grade, and another boy in like the 5th grade. And of course, 2 parents, a mom and a dad, and 2 lovely black dogs. Those people showed me and my brother so much love and care even after our hearts were broken by so many people, so many different times. I never had a father figure in my life, so when I got to this one, I didn't really know how it felt to have a father at all. December 31st, 2014, we were adopted by these people. Being here for 2 years now, I've received lots of love and crazy rules and groundings. I'm blessed to have a place to finally call home.
Oh my god, and we totally jumped off the cliff and had to swim all the way to shore because the dog chased us all the way to the end.
This is my dream of getting a YouTube play button. It's like right there. I will never get that because of stupid I am and stuff like that.
When I was younger, my dad was in the military, and we moved very frequently. It was just me, my dad, and my mom, and we were like 3 peas in a pod. My dad decided to retire in Florida, so that's where we moved. We just found a house there, and I'd never lived by family before since I moved so much with the military that it was new for me to actually be by family, and I was really excited about that. So with a couple months living in Florida, we found a really nice house and started moving into it and remodeling some parts of it. One night, my dad was acting really strange, and I found out that my parents were getting a divorce. I was very awestruck and honestly thought they were joking because my parents were high school sweethearts. They'd been married for 21 years, and I'd never grown up without my dad. So that was really new information for me. My dad left the next morning. My mom and I decided to move back to Missouri in order to cope with ourselves, and I had my best friends there, and she had her best friend there. While in Missouri, we found out that my dad did find another woman, so that was very difficult for us to handle. We ended up going to the counselor a lot and had frequent emotional outbursts. I couldn't even be at school because I was so upset. I was extremely close to my dad, and he was always an amazing dad to me. During that time, I was in a very hard place. So I ended up doing virtual online school, which helped me a lot because I could spend more time with my mom and we could cope through it together. While I was in Missouri, I would always argue with my dad over the phone because I was not ready to meet his new wife. I ended up deciding that my best bet was to meet her. I met her, and she's actually a very nice woman. Although what her and my dad did was horrible and put an emotional toll on me forever, I really do enjoy her company, and I enjoy my dad. And it's fresh and nice to be able to go visit someone else sometimes and to accept and maybe even move on from what happened. My mom and I are a lot happier in Missouri, and although what happened to us was so disappointing, we still try our best to be strong every day. My dad is a great man, and although what he did really hurt me, he still has always been there for me, and he's never left by my side. He's always been a good dad to me, and he's always spent time with me, and I really appreciate that. I'm involved in cheerleading now, sports, and I'm not in that depressing place where I was in Florida. In Florida, I had to quit school and do online schooling because of how upset I was. I wasn't used to being without my dad, but now I'm gradually getting used to being without my dad and trying to see his side of the view and seeing his family as well. And looking back on it, I don't think my parents were ever happy. If your parents are divorced or they are getting divorced, it's going to be okay. People automatically assume that if your parents are divorced, it's going to be bad forever, and that was exactly my mindset. But I'm so much happier now being so involved and back with my best friends again, and we're really living happily.
Is this video?
Oh my god, and we totally jumped off the cliff and had to swim all the way to shore because...
This one only lasts for 3 minutes.
On the first day of kindergarten, I was crying my eyes out after class. My mom had overlooked informing me that after school she wouldn't be picking me up, I'd be going to daycare. But when she wasn't there, I was a 5-year-old puddle of tears. That is, until a bright little girl cheered me up by asking me about myself. That girl's name was Sarah, and for 15 years, she was my best friend in the entire world. We only lived 2 blocks away from each other, so every morning before school we would bike to the corner of our conjoining streets, awaiting our smiling reunion. Our friendship never faltered. If I needed someone to go to Costco with me for a quick errand, she was my girl. If I needed to go to an awkward high school dance, I was comforted by Sarah's presence. We grew up together and graduated high school as a pair. During college, Sarah developed mental health issues. Her sophomore year was a lonely time for her. Depression and anxiety overwhelmed her, and she came home from winter break seeking treatment. For the next 5 months, she was really suffering. I did my absolute best to support her via text, calls, and FaceTime, encouraging her to give it her all to get better. Unfortunately, at the end of those 5 months, Sarah chose to stop fighting her battle and ended her life. A decision which halted mine. I had never lost someone that close to me. It was just before finals, a challenging time on its own, and I wanted to be able to study so I could finish out my sophomore year strong, but I was really weakened by the grief I was experiencing. It was hard for me to sleep. I tossed and turned at night, unable to stop thinking about how much I missed her. During the day, I felt waves of sadness where all I could do was cry and wish that it was all a bad dream. My journey with grieving, while sad, was healthy. I shared what I was going through with my roommate, Colleen, and she would cook me meals when I didn't feel like it and patiently listen to my concerns. My boyfriend provided a reliable source of comfort and endless hugs. I also confided in my occupational therapy professor, who did know what I was going through because her own brother had committed suicide. She gave me plenty of helpful resources, from quotes to studies of grief and healthy ways to cope with pain. She also wisely said that while I will always have a hole in my heart for Sarah, the wound around that hole that is so tender right now will heal as I find closure. I will never stop missing Sarah. Mental illness is not widely understood. You are allowed to feel pain and, like Sarah, to be tired of fighting mental illness, but you are not allowed to give up. We are all the authors of our lives, and instead of ending your sentence with a period, choose to do so with a semicolon. Breathe, pause, regroup, and then seize another day. You've gotten through every day before this, and you will get through the next.
Alright, bye. I'll see y'all fans tomorrow in a little while, so yeah.